Former Jeffrey Epstein confidant Ghislaine Maxwell once said that above all, she had one great passion: saving the oceans.
At 1,500 feet, I switched on the lights, hoping to see a new mythical sea creature, but in fact what I saw was a plastic hanger. I was so absolutely devastated, but it was at that moment that I realized that I was really going to dedicate the rest of my life to taking an involvement with and bringing an education around the ocean.
Nice sentiment. Didn't turn out that way. Instead, Maxwell dedicated much of her life to something else: helping abuse young girls. Today, federal officials announced criminal charges against her for the years that she spent working for Jeffrey Epstein.
Today, we announced charges against Ghislaine Maxwell for helping Jeffrey Epstein sexually exploit and abuse multiple minor girls from the period of 1994 through 1997. In some cases, Maxwell participated in the abuse herself. Maxwell enticed minor girls, got them to trust her, then delivered them into the trap that she and Epstein had set.
Maxwell has been all over the world recently, according to news reports, but authorities arrested her at an isolated home in central New Hampshire. Why? What was she doing there? What we know tonight is that Maxwell bought the house and the 156 acres it sits on last December. She bought it anonymously for $1 million in cash. Maybe now that she's under arrest, maybe she's on suicide watch tonight, we'll learn more about what she did for Jeffrey Epstein and what Jeffrey Epstein did. Where did all the money come from? And why were so many famous people always in the room? For example, the founder of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman, was a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein's. Now he's a top donor to Joe Biden, and quite a moralizer, too. How much did Reid Hoffman know about what Jeffrey Epstein was doing? Will the FBI be questioning him? If not, why not? And what about the founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates? Gates made at least 3 visits to Jeffrey Epstein's townhouse. He called Epstein and his life, quote, intriguing in an email. That's intriguing on its own. Will we learn more? And what about former Harvard president and Obama administration official Larry Summers, former Secretary of the Treasury under Bill Clinton? Summers flew on Epstein's plane and then got him to donate tens of millions of dollars to Harvard University, where Epstein did not go. And needless to say, there was Bill Clinton himself, who often flew on Epstein's plane and then lied about it. We deserve, in fact, we have a right to know what all of these people really knew about Jeffrey Epstein. Many mysteries yet to solve. Alana Goodman has come closer than most to getting to the core of it. She's co-author of the book, A Convenient Death, The Mysterious Demise of Jeffrey Epstein, and she joins us tonight. Thanks so much for coming on. So first things first, why do you think Maxwell was in New Hampshire this morning?
Well, I just want to say, Tucker, I think that prison is going to be a pretty big adjustment for Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine was born into French high society. She was the daughter of a billionaire. She's lived this just very extravagant lifestyle throughout her life. And as you mentioned, I mean, even when she was in hiding at this hideout, she's living in a $1 million custom Tudor mansion estate on 150 acres in New Hampshire. So, you know, not a bad way to be hiding out, I guess, or to be social distancing right now. So I think that this is going to be a pretty big adjustment when she
But it's pretty weird, though. I mean, so the Daily Mail just had her in Israel not that long ago. We know that I think she has a French passport. She certainly spent a lot of time in the UK. Her father was English, Robert Maxwell. She had to have known that American authorities were after her. Do you have any sense of why she would be in this country right now?
It's very bizarre. I mean, people were shocked to hear that. There were rumors of all different places that she was supposedly at. I mean, some people, with claims maybe Paris. I mean, people had spotted her in Paris. Right. There were claims about London. There were claims even about like the Israeli embassy and things like that. So, yeah, there's been some pretty wild speculation. But I think generally the idea was people assumed she was out of the country. I mean, right. She was born in France. So she was able to, you know, France would not have necessarily extradited her. She would not have been able to be extradited necessarily from France. So it was very surprising that she is hiding out really under everyone's noses in the United States, within driving distance of the U.S. Attorney's Office that is prosecuting her right now. It definitely came as a shock.
Have the FBI spoken, do you know, to Reid Hoffman, who is one of the people who apparently helped get Jeffrey Epstein off the charges the first time he was charged? He might have interesting information. Have the feds talked to him?
Well, I don't know about Reid Hoffman in particular. I think that a lot of the friends of Jeffrey Epstein, who were very relieved after he died, are probably pretty terrified right now at this moment, because I think that Ghislaine Maxwell has every incentive to talk in this situation. I mean, Epstein is dead, so she doesn't really have to worry about protecting him or anything else at this point.
That's right.
And I think that DOJ also has more leeway to potentially cut a deal with her than it did with Epstein, because he was accused of being the kingpin in this situation. I think that they would, because she was assisting him with this, and she was not necessarily the kingpin, I think that they might have more room to try to come to a deal with her.
So in 10 seconds, tell me, just from all the research you've done on Maxwell, does she seem like the kind of person who might take her own life in custody? I just want to get this out here early.
Absolutely not. But again, this is a lifestyle that she is not used to. I think that we need to hear directly from DOJ about how they're going to fix the problems and make sure that this doesn't happen again in this situation, and that these victims are able to find justice.
Yeah, amen. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.